Hello, sisters. Welcome to Rising Feminine Online Temple, which is a 7 days initiation for a woman to journey back to her true essence. I am Junita D'Souza, your feminine lifestylist and the keeper of this online temple, where I've gathered visionaries from around the world to join forces to initiate you in your authentic feminine being. And a big part of my work with women is to invite them to indulge into everyday rituals and create space for something that they really desire. So, in this moment, when you're watching this offering, I invite you to create a safe, sacred space for yourself so you can receive today's offering by our guide, Eatough. And it is a very special conversation that we will be diving into because Ellen is the soulful sex coach and is also the founder of ecstatica.com, the way to an erotic, ecstatic love life. Her mission is to help you experience lifelong, electrifying sex with a spiritually connected soulmate. She's a sexual healer and hypnotherapist with a master's degree in East West psychology. She has also over 30 years of experience in holistic health and is a trained practitioner in many energetic and somatic modalities. But it was Ellen's personal spontaneous initiation into the realm of transcendent sex, a realm that she didn't even know existed, that pushed her to help others experience sexual healing and sexual spiritual fulfillment. Long fascinated with the interface of science and spirituality, Ellen is unique in her field in that she incorporates subtle energy tools and vibrational frequencies, including sounds and colored light, in her work. And she uses these tools in sessions with private clients for sexual healing, in group programs to enhance sexuality and intimate communication, and in her cutting edge music for better sex, infused with auditory pheromones that stimulate sexual passion, offered easier orgasms for women, open hearted intimacy, and spiritual connection in bed. So, ladies, you are here for a ride with Ellen. Ellen, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is exciting.
I'm so excited because I know that I've been following your work, and this is the chance that us we got together. And I'm so excited to be talking to you on this topic because the time I started to follow you was when you released the tools around music for better sex, and I think I really enjoyed those video series and loved your energy of how you were actually radiating what you were speaking, and I knew that I had to connect with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
So, Ellen, before we got into our call today, I did a quick meditation and just tuned into the topic for today and your work and what I could hold the space for in this online temple, and took out a goddess oracle card because I think this online temple is incomplete without it. So, goddess Astara came out, which is a goddess of fertility. And I was quite amazed because she marks new beginnings, and this is where we are going to talk about sexual healing, and it can be a new beginning for so many of us. So I find it really apt, and I want to ask you if you in this moment feel any resonance with Goddess Astara in your life or in this moment.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I'm not actually familiar with that particular fertility goddess. There are a number from different cultures. But I think the whole fertility goddess archetype, first of all, it's ultimately the feminine, the divine feminine, right? But it's great for new beginnings, but it's also our creativity. I mean, if we can create a human being within our bodies, it's also the energy of creating anything in our work. It's creating this feminine divine temple that you've been creating. It's, creation in our work. It's creation in new ways of parenting or being a woman. It's our creating a relationship with a partner. So I definitely relate to that.
Awesome. So, Ellen, before we get into today's conversation, could you tell us how did you get initiated into your sacred purpose?
Oh boy, I didn't know it was happening until it's sort of in retrospect. I've been involved with alternative forms of healing for quite some time. I started working with colored light projected into the eyes as a hypnotherapist, as one of a variety of tools. That was sort of the most unique at the time. And it's in the US, an FDA approved instrument. But at any rate, I was trained in this protocol, and my first client, as it turned out, was a man who'd been molested by his uncle when he was 7. I didn't notice, but that was sort of setting a theme. And through the course of my work, which had to do with releasing all kinds of pains and physical and emotional trauma, including head trauma, and working with children with learning disabilities, if I look back, there was definitely a theme of sexual or relationship wounding. That was the thread in my work with clients. And then in the late 1990s, about 7 or 8 years into that work, I had my own sort of journey that took me into this realm. I'd always wanted to experience more of a spiritual connection in my sexual relationship. And I entered into this relationship, which was sort of catapulted me into this realm, quite shockingly to both of us. And I'll admit, the first time we made love, it was like there was this palpable heart opening and third eye opening. And there was this sensation of sexual energy pulsing through us in a way that neither of us had ever experienced before. And it almost like it was like the energy was riding us rather than us doing anything on purpose. And then over the evolution of the relationship, I was finding myself entering these sort of altered states during lovemaking, where I might find myself sort of out in the cosmos with stars and planets, or under the ocean, or once I remember seeing my partner as sort of like morphing to different men, young men, old men, men of different races and cultures. And I started morphing into my own imagination as different women in different cultures and different ages and ethnicities. And then it switched. So like he was the women and I was the men. It was like, I could never imagine such a thing, but I realized I was like experiencing sexuality in so many dimensions of humanity expressing itself. And it was always this, he experienced all of this differently than I did, but for him it was still a totally different, unique experience than he'd ever had before. And we were really tapping into this, something way beyond ourselves. I felt like it was like God or consciousness or whatever you want to call it was making love through us, expressing itself through us. And we were both kind of looking at each other going like, oh my God, how come nobody ever told us about this? So I proceeded on my journey because I was also in graduate school at the time, and I was getting a master's in East-West psychology, which is a marriage of Western psychology with Eastern spiritual traditions. And so I took kind of an academic approach at first to figure this out. And I was like studying and reading books, going to classes, analyzing it all. And it eventually came together, and I started getting invited to, I actually became a research subject in a study on transcendent sex that was published under a major publisher here in the US. It was called Transcendent Sex by Dr. Jenny Wade. And so it really unfolded, and I was then asked to speak and teach about it at this international conference on sacred sexuality. So it kind of over time and through meditation and percolating on all that I'd been studying and experiencing, I came up with these 4 keys. And when I started teaching that, people started telling me that, oh my God, we may not have experienced these altered states during sex, but we're having the best sex of our lives. So something worked. So it's just kind of evolved from there. But that was really the pivotal period that it was like coming together. And so then I started seeing that the work I've been doing with private clients in sexual healing was actually integrated with this. So my own healing was taking place through these sexual experiences, but I was also working with individuals, and it just kept evolving over time, both the healing part and then the sort of how to move into the positive end of the spectrum with ways to connect more deeply with your partner, and how to work with sexual energy, and tools and techniques just to make sex great while having that deep, intimate connection, and hopefully a sense of spiritual union at the same time.
Wow, yeah. So, what do you feel is an important aspect for feminine initiation?
I think it's really important for us to stay in touch with our physical and emotional experience, because we live in a very masculine driven culture, as you know. And as women, we so often, in order to make it in the work world, professional world, whatever we're doing, even managing a household of children, we often have to draw on the masculine energy within ourselves to do that. But then I think it's so important to be able to transition at will into your feminine side, especially when we're relating with a partner when we want to draw out that partner's masculine essence, if we want to have that polarization to kind of bring out our femininity and interplay with the masculine. But ever since the Greeks, and probably the Greek philosophers, and probably even farther back, the aspects of femininity have been disregarded. The psyche and the mental was considered, that's the masculine, that was considered to be better and more important than the soma, the physical, the kind of messy side of life, the women and menstruation and childbearing and all this emotional expression that women are more readily able to tap into. That was considered the messy side of life that got in the way. And I think this is shifting as we are becoming conscious of our planet as the ultimate manifestation of the feminine, Mother Earth, Pachamama. And we're realizing now that we have to heal the earth. We have to pay attention to what the earth is telling us about how the masculine has been trying to control it. And I think there's a way to come into balance. What we really need as women and our feminine is to touch into our feminine awareness and touch into our body wisdom and acknowledge our emotions, so that our emotions don't get stuffed, because when they do, it blocks the energy within us. And when our emotions are stuffed and that blocked energy starts to kind of crystallize, it can lead to physical problems. It can lead to illness and aberrations emotionally, mentally, and so forth. So I think it's so important for us to learn to tap into our physical and emotional dimensions, and teach our children and share with our friends, and honor it, and bring it into equal importance with the masculine. So that's why I applaud you for what you're doing, and for this World Femininity Day, and you're taking on the
Thank you. I can so relate to what you say, because I had gone through that phase of suppressing my emotions, especially, and just feeling the wound of it. And I actually manifested eczema all over my body, and I took steroids, and it just kept growing and growing. It wouldn't heal, and I just lost all my self-confidence and self-esteem and self-worth, because I was no longer feeling or looking beautiful on the physical, because my entire body was covered in scars. And this is actually how my journey of exploring femininity started, because I was just tired of everything, and I just wanted to know, what am I supposed to do as a woman? Like, please, somebody show. And I had like this really angry conversation with God, thinking that the God would give me a solution, but that didn't happen in that moment as I was expecting from my logic. But I can totally relate to the suppression and how it manifests into all sorts of illnesses for women.
And for men.
Yeah, for men as well. Yeah. I think emotions, this is what they do to us when suppressed.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, we're designed to have emotions for a reason. Yeah. I mean, if we didn't have fear and anger and some of these other, what we consider negative emotions, we wouldn't survive as a species. But because we've made it sort of negative to express these emotions, or sometimes it's not safe to express them. You know, we've learned as children, sometimes it wasn't safe to express these emotions. Then we start to stuff them and it becomes a pattern. And then there can be just a little trigger and all that old stuff just comes
Yes.
up, you know,
Yes.
it's like out of proportion.
I was totally like that. And I grew up in India. So you can imagine like growing up as a teenager, like a couple of decades ago in India. And, you know, you have to bottle your emotions to a very large extent. And all of that started to just come out in all sorts of anger, resentment, and disease. And yeah, like depression finally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, what are some symptoms of potential sexual or relationship wounding? And I've just spoken about some of them, but I just want to
Yeah,
hear.
you have. That's good. I'm going to, for purposes of time, I want to, there's so many possibilities. I'm going to read a list, but I wanted to give you a list so people can see that it's not always the obvious. We think of sexual wounding often as things like rape, molestation, and incest, and those are big ones, and those are traumas that I work with. But there's also things that are a little more subtle, often insidious, things like shame and guilt that are just so pervasive in the culture, so many cultures and religion. Difficulty trusting, especially trusting a lover, inability to reach orgasm with a partner or at all, difficulty relaxing into and fully enjoying sex, fear of intimacy, especially when you're naked together, physical or emotional numbness or pain. For example, I come across a lot of women who feel like there's some numbness in their vagina. As women, we can hold a lot in our vaginas. Fear of abandonment or fear of being smothered in a relationship. Now, I think we all have a little of at least one of those, often both. I have a little of both, but, but when it's the extreme. Irrational jealousy, fear of betrayal or violence without cause relative to the person you're afraid this could happen with. Feelings of inferiority or inadequacy or confusion or worthlessness, especially around your sexuality. Disconnection between sex and love or intimate emotions. Some of the people who've had sexual trauma will disassociate during sex. Like you're having sex and all of a sudden you feel like you're away from the act, and it's like you're kind of watching your body have sex with somebody, but you're not really in it. That's can be the result of sexual wounding. It could be lack of interest in or avoiding sex, especially when a woman is younger and premenopausal and there shouldn't theoretically be hormonal issues. Inability to make decisions or commitments relative to relationships.
Wow, that no one can relate that to sexual wounding.
Right, but it often is because our sexuality relates to our ability to be intimate with another individual, you know. It can also be the need, this is mostly for men, but it also happens with women, the need for pornography or fantasies in order to get really interested in sex or to stay aroused and get really to climax during sex. Sometimes, or attitudes like sex is dirty. Sometimes things like depression can be the result of sexual wounding, that sort of thing. And then if you get to some of the underlying causes, things that we wouldn't necessarily think of can be things like emotional abandonment by a parent. Physical abandonment, of course, can be things like getting caught masturbating by a parent and then shamed for it. Being shamed for how you're developing by your peers, and you know whether you're developing breasts too fast or too slow or too big or not big enough, or having acne or whatever it is. These kind of being shamed, or kids are so cruel so often to each other, and so this can really be very wounding relative to our ability to have intimate relationships and our full expression of our sexuality. So those kinds of things can happen. Also having like unwanted advances at a tender age, unwanted sexual advances by, say, an older guy, and not knowing how to deal with it, or getting into a situation that you feel like you shouldn't have gotten into, you know, and starting to feel guilty about it, even though it's not your fault. Um, Parental violence, of course, even not to you, but toward each other, parents being violent with each other can affect our sexuality. So all those kinds of things can affect our ability to express and to feel our full body sexuality and sexuality, to be sexually responsive and to be able to enter into a really deep, intimate connection with another person.
Yeah, and so many of them I could relate to. Like we all go through so many of the symptoms. It's just not like one or two or one big thing.
Yeah, our culture is really screwed when it comes to sexuality and intimacy. It's no surprise, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what are the some of the tools or methods that you use with your clients to go about this, sexual wounding or emotional?
I use some rather unique tools. I mentioned color. When I had an office outside my home, I actually, where I would see clients, I actually used a clinical instrument. But now my clients are all over the world and all over the US. And so I have put these color fields online. So you're looking at color on a screen. And it's not just the colors that one would associate with the chakras. There's more colors than that. And they have an energetic effect, but the eyes are like the frontal lobes of the brain, so they affect our emotions. I work with eye movement. You might have heard of eye movement, rapid eye movement for healing trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so I incorporate eye movement, color, breath work, somatic awareness, meaning tuning into how the body, whatever you're feeling in the body at the moment with whatever emotions you're having and memories and thoughts. And so we're integrating all of this at the same time. That the color is really evocative and helpful with this. And I also use some regression techniques, light regression, to find the source of really rapid ways to access the source of an inappropriate emotion, like maybe shame. There's nothing to be shameful, feel shamed about at this moment, or anger that's causing havoc and so forth. We find out what emotions are causing you challenges, and then we go back, like finding the weeds and pulling them out by the roots. We find out in the past what those are, and I have techniques for just sort of releasing those very quickly. Or the other thing is finding decisions we made usually really early in life. I find that we often have an experience, then we draw a conclusion from the experience, and then we make a decision going forward, usually as a child, to protect ourselves from shame or getting in trouble, but they don't necessarily serve us as an adult. And I could give you examples, but I know we don't have a lot of time here. So those are the kinds of things that I
Wow,
use to help people release trauma. It's quite a rapid process, because I don't think that talk therapy is very masculine. And I think the slow route to healing, it's great for insight and awareness, and eventually people can get to some healing with talk therapy, but I think it's a very slow route, because sexual wounding goes in at the physical and emotional level. Even if somebody says something to you that is wounding, you're experiencing it not on a mental level, even though it may be words, you're experiencing it on a physical and emotional level. Just like a car accident, it goes in through our physical and emotional systems. And so the fastest way, I think, to go in and release the trauma or the wounding is to go in at the physical and emotional levels, because that's where we get direct access and can release things most rapidly.
Yeah, I totally agree. I tend to these days get drawn towards more outside of the talk therapy, because I think like when we feel in our body, then we're able to move those emotions in our body.
Yeah, and that's the feminine approach ultimately.
So I know we spoke about it earlier that you will be guiding us through a process to tap into the body's wisdom. So could you tell us something about it, and then possibly then guide us through?
Absolutely. So this is it's called Talk with Your Body. It's a way that anybody can use on their own to access the wisdom of our bodies. Because actually, and of course it's just various dimensions of ourselves, but it's a tool to tap into wisdom that we really often don't have access to. And so what I'm going to ask everyone who's watching this to do, and you now, Janita, is to scan your body for a part that would like to speak up. You might, if you don't have any sensation, discomfort, or anything that's bothering you right now, it could be something that you think might be a problem, like maybe a woman I was working with, she had uterine tumors. Or it could be somebody who's got, they've had kidney stones in the past. They don't right now, but they know there might be something with the kidneys. Or it could be, you might want to scan your body for a part that wants to speak up, even though there's no problem right now, a part that you could just go inside and say, just kind of scan your body from top down and say, is there any organ or body part that would like some attention, that would like to speak to me right now? And if that doesn't do it, you can also scan for, since it's so common, shame is so common and pervasive around sexuality, you can scan your body and ask if there's a part that would like to speak up relative to shame, or in general, speak up relative to your sexuality, your healthy sexual self-expression, or having deeper intimate relationships. So just scan yourself for anything that might want to speak up. In your past, it might have been your eczema, but obviously that's not happening right now because your skin looks lovely. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, and if you do this on your own later, even though we're speaking out loud now, I recommend you always speak out loud for this exercise. Otherwise, we get kind of spacey during this and we lose the benefits. So, Juanita now, Jonita, excuse me if I'm saying it wrong. So I would just say, what body part have you found one that would like to speak up? Yeah. Okay, and what part is that?
Surprisingly, it's my vagina.
Okay, great. This is common for us women. So what I'd like you to do, and you can just, whoever, when you're listening, if for you it's not the vagina, just replace the body part that you're speaking to with the word vagina. So I'd like you to say, vagina, are you willing to speak with me?
Vagina, are you willing to speak?
And just listen. Vagina says,
Mm-hmm.
Good. And if somebody is getting an answer of no, like sometimes you get an answer like, why should I talk to you? I've been shouting and you haven't paid attention to me all these years. So if you get a no, then I suggest you say, that you try to negotiate with them, this body part, and say, I am so sorry I haven't been paying attention. I didn't know how, but now I really would like to listen to you. And would you be willing to give me a chance and speak? And so you can usually work something out. So now your vagina says yes. And so just say, vagina, what would you like to tell me?
What would you like to tell me?
And vagina says,
so my vagina is right now telling me to build a relationship with her. And she feels tensed, and she would not like to feel that.
she wants you to end a relationship because she feels tense.
No, she wants me to build a relationship with her.
Oh, build a relationship with her.
Yeah.
Great.
And there is a very tense feeling that she would not like to feel.
Great. So you can adjust this question, but I would like to suggest you say, so what's the first step that I can take to build this relationship with you? You can say, I would like a relationship with you too. So how do we proceed?
So how do we proceed? How can I proceed? So the word just comes with me is touch.
And do you know exactly what kind of touch she means? Or do you want to ask?
I think it's so she would like to experience trusting touch from me.
Okay. Trusting touch from you. And do you know exactly what that is, or do you need to ask for a little more
I think I
specificity?
know. I think I'm getting some clarity around it. Yes.
Great. Okay. So do you want to ask her if she thinks that'll release some of the relieve some of the tension?
Do you think it will release some tension? I feel like a deep silence,
Okay.
but that doesn't feel like a no.
Okay, good. And would you like to ask her, is there anything else that you would like me to know at this time?
Is there anything else you'd like to know this time?
And Vagina's response is,
She wants more appreciation and attention.
ah, good. Okay, are you willing to give her that?
Yes.
And do you know how she wants that, or do you need to ask?
I think I can play with that.
Okay, great. So you can just tell her that, that's ask her if she feels complete for this time, knowing that you can always come back and revisit the conversation. This is important to always do. You always want to make sure you complete the conversation.
Mhm. Yes, this is a yes.
Okay, great. And you can always just agree that I'll check in with you, periodically. So beautiful. So how was that for you?
Actually, she made me laugh.
Oh,
It
what
started.
happened?
It started very tense in a very tense way. I think I was kind of trying too hard to connect in the beginning, but then I think voicing it out kind of takes you outside of your mind, like as you said earlier that we can drift away.
Yeah.
But I think voicing it out for me felt like I really want you to hear this. No, so yeah, I feel I don't know. I'm just like I feel like I don't know. I feel like laughing because I feel like I don't know. There's some kind of funny emotion right now in my
Oh,
vagina.
that's great. Well, laughter is a great release of tension.
Okay.
That's lovely, lovely. And I just want to thank you for being so open and vulnerable. What you did was a gift to everybody in your audience, that you're willing to do that. And that was beautiful.
I need to concentrate now because I can't. That was really nice exercise, and I think I should do this more often. Possibly, I should just write it in my diary so I will remember to check in every day, so I continue to build this relationship.
That's what a relationship requires, right? Is attention. That's great. And any body part, I mean, it's really good to, especially if something is screaming at you, like an ache or pain, headaches or a stiff neck or menstrual cramps or whatever it is. You can do it it's so valuable. This is something, it's a really deep feminine practice to tune into our body and let the wisdom that resides in our body, like the wisdom that resides in Mother Earth, speak to us, just to give an ear to that. But saying it out loud, like you said, is so valuable. And then just wait. And then, like you were doing, you can even say like the exact words you're hearing out loud, like whatever that organ or part of your body is saying, just to say that out loud as well. And you can do it with a friend. You know, you can take a friend through this and let your friend do it in reverse, and that's another way to keep it from drifting out, you know.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I was thinking that I should actually do this with my husband, because he's been having back pain for some time. So, you know, this exercise would be like awesome for him.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. This has been
You're so welcome.
amazing. So amazing. I'm so happy to, I can't stop laughing, first of all.
Right, because our vagina should be joyful, right? It's our most feminine, I mean, it's part of our most feminine reproductive system and our pleasure. And, you know, there's so much in our vaginas, you know. And yeah, I just want to honor you for doing that. I'm so excited that you're happy.
Okay.
You want to laugh. You know, a laughing woman is contagious too. It's great.
So I wanted to ask you about the amazing gift that you want to also share with the women watching. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah, it's an audio and ebook. So the ebook is just the transcription of the audio. Some people like to listen, others like to read, and it's called Beyond Orgasm: How to Have a More Deeply Connected Sexual Experience. So there are tips and techniques. Some of them are physical, sexual. Some are more emotional, in terms of connection with your partner. And you go to get it, you go to beyondorgasm.com. Again, that's just
And I'll
beyond.
have the links
Okay.
video as well.
Yeah.
And this practice can be done by a person who is single as well as a person who is in a relationship.
Yeah, that's not the gift is not really a practice so much.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This guide.
I mean, if you want one that's for couples, I can give you that, but that's actually a practice.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I'm sure it's got some gems hidden in it.
Okay, there are.
So, Ellen, before we end our call for today, I want to ask you a question which I've been asking every single guide on this online temple. What does rising feminine mean to you?
Well, that's a good question. I think that for me, it means honoring and respecting the feminine parts within ourselves, the feminine mode, the feminine dynamic within ourselves, the feminine energy, and bringing that up to equal value and in balance with the masculine aspects of ourselves. As women, actually, it's usually predominant, but we're not expressing it that way. So bringing it into full flower, so to speak, within ourselves, and then doing so also respecting and honoring that in the earth, Mother Earth.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your time, for your generosity, and with this kind offering. I'm sure all the women watching have taken tips and also the exercise with them, because I'm going to be doing this for sure. And I'm going to make sure that I do it regularly and not just keep it at the back and then forget it. But I think it's useful how we can connect with our bodies and start healing ourselves through this technique. And we learn that.
Absolutely. Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, let's all just honor the feminine within ourselves and each other and the planet.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.